we need to talk about the ending cutscene for The Reckoning because, frankly, the ending is insane. Obvious spoiler warning ahead for those that haven't seen the ending and don't want to know yet. There is so much we need to break down here because, spoiler alert, the old zombies crew are back, but in a new variation. Let's break down everything in this ending, including our current playable crew, this new crew, and all the secret details we can find in this ending. Let's just jump straight into it, but I'd love to know your thoughts about this ending in the comments below. Jumping straight into things, before we could even get to that moment, we have two endings for this particular chapter of the Dark Aether universe, but the beginning half of these endings are the same, where once our playable crew are teleported, their energy is zapped into the Sentinel artifact. Moments later, we see the Sentinel artifact emit a huge burst of energy, which seems to rip a tear in the fabric of time and space, with the sky having this purple-blue swirl, where in the case of the good Richtofen ending, we can see several objects floating in the sky amongst it, but this looks visually almost identical to the ending of Tag der Toten from Black Ops 4 Zombies, where once the summoning key was destroyed by the Agarthan device, we got to see the entire of the multiverse for a few moments in the sky, with very similar patterns of swirling colors and a focus on an electrical beam of light directly into the middle of an ether tear before destroying the multiverse for good. In the Richtofen ending, we see an orb spawn from that ether tear that brings Richtofen's wife and son back to life. We can see Richtofen cradling both of them as he looks over to the sunset as the Dark Aether chapter concludes. In the alternative ending, we can see that the Sam AI ball is now glowing purple and an orb spawns from the ether tear that materializes into the full body of Samantha Maxis last seen in Black Ops Cold War. She's wearing the exact same clothes and looks exactly the same as the moment she entered Dark Aether back in Cold War. However, if you pay close attention as she's materializing, we can see that the Sam AI's orb color turns from a purple and then it starts beaming into Samantha like as if she is swapping souls. And once complete, the Sam AI ball is no longer functioning, meaning that in this ending, the Sam AI managed to take over Samantha Max's body for the ultimate power. And we can tell this by the final shot showing her glowing purple eyes. The thing to realize here is we don't actually know which ending is necessarily canon. Based on what we learned from the Modern Warfare zombie storyline, we learned that our current crew of characters failed to save Samantha Maxis when they themselves were in the Dark Aether, making it more likely that the Richtofen ending is the canon one. However, until we get future story details, we just don't know for sure, but it seems that this chapter is come to a close. Panos and Blanchard are no longer relevant, Forsaken is dead, and we assume that Director Richtofen lives happily ever after. But it's what happens after that, of course, everyone is talking about. Following on from the Sentinel artifact teleporting our four main characters, they are teleported back into the reception area of the Janus Towers. Whilst the cutscene doesn't allude to this, I'm pretty confident that they have been teleported to a Dark Aether reality where they are still within the Janus Towers. But of course, as we know, they are not alone. Straight out of nowhere, we are presented with a brand new version of our four beloved characters. Now, just before we dive into the specific details on those characters, there is one detail I want to point out just before we see them walk into frame, and that is the focus of a soldier on the ground wearing a helmet. Now, it is extremely dark and there are very little details to give away the identity of this person, but just as a hunch, I would not be surprised if this was Peter McCain. Peter McCain was one of the original spies that was trapped in Verrückt, who was then the notorious hanging man in Shino Numa. We saw him in various points throughout the Aether storyline, including Black Ops 3 in the Angonia fracture, where a portal opened in the sky over Stalingrad and Primis used Peter McCain's parachute to land them safely in the city. From Black Ops 4, we learned that Peter McCain was resurrected using the elemental shard, and the life force of Peter McCain became trapped inside of a broken ADAM unit. The crew in Black Ops 4's Alpha Omega map saved Peter McCain's life force, and as an ethereal orb flew away, stating he had unfinished business to attend to. Whilst this could just be any generic Janus facility soldier we're seeing here on the ground, I wouldn't be surprised if this was Peter McCain, as clearly this body is in focus for a few moments to gain a little bit of attention to it. But the main point of the ending is, of course, the return of those new versions of the beloved characters. But how on earth are they back? Well, that is honestly an answer I don't have for you right now, but clearly this was teased all the way back in Firebase Z in 2021, 1, Samantha Maxis returned from being trapped in the Dark Ether and had several items related to each of these characters on her person, including the katana, flying goggles, and a red scarf. And from the Easter egg steps in the Reckoning, all of these items have been discovered within the Dark Ether, and that the items themselves do link up to the characters that we assume they would be. Let's now break down frame by frame absolutely everything we can learn about our new versions of our characters. We get to see brand new versions of Takeo, Dempsey, Richtofen, and Nikolai from left to right, with the cutscene ending with a focus in on Richtofen. So let's first focus on him, because rather than him being like Primis or like Ultimus, he seems to almost be a blend of both, wearing a very thick trench coat, and over that he seems to be wearing a scarf along with having a shoulder bag. But it seems that he has two different shaped gold medals on his jacket very briefly before he walks too far forward into frame. The easiest identifier of what era of Richtofen we're looking at here is the symbol on his hat, which appears to be an eagle with outstretched wings perched above a circular wreath enclosing another emblem. The style of this is reminiscent of World War II era German military insignia, often associated with officer caps. And in historical context, such designs typically represented rank and branch of service. And from a visual standpoint, this looks to be the most reminiscent to Ultimus Richtofen, who also wore a very similar World War II German military hat. Now, by no means do I think that this is a Ultimus version of Richtofen, let alone an Ultimus version of these characters. There are visual cues that seem similar, but these do seem entirely unique and different. Unlike Ultimus Richtofen, this version of Richtofen is sporting a moustache similar to Primis Richtofen. And I think we need to make the distinction here that this is not Director Richtofen that we're seeing in a different form. This is a completely different Richtofen to the one that we've had inside of Black Ops 6 Zombies. Character that we get to see the least of, because they go out of frame so quickly, is Takeo on the far left. We can see, compared to any other version of Takeo, his hair is down rather than tied up in a ponytail, and he is still wielding a katana on his back, very similar to what we saw of Primis Takeo. The only main detail we can point out right now is the symbol on his chest, which appears to depict a stylized eagle with its wings spread enclosed within a bordered shield-like shape. The design is visually similar to heraldic or military emblems that often symbolize strength, vigilance, and authority, which could be leaning into the tropes we saw with Primis Takeo with his loyalty to the Emperor and the Japanese army. It also seems thematically similar to the eagle symbol on the hat that Richtofen's wearing, possibly indicating that they are part of the same faction or organization within this part of the story. Moving on to Tank Dempsey that we can see behind Richtofen to the left, he looks to be the most familiar to the Ultimus Dempsey that we saw in Black Ops 4. The only difference is that his hairstyle is ever so slightly different. Very little else to say there aside from it looks exactly like Tank Dempsey. And then to Richtofen's other side, we get to see Nikolai, where clearly his visual is most inspired by Primis Nikolai, where he's sporting the exact same flying goggles as well as that flying hat that we saw him sport as Primis Nikolai throughout the entirety of the Ether storyline. Unlike the other characters, unfortunately, there are no identifiers on his clothing to make out any real details or story facts, apart from the fact that, yep, that is very much Primis Nikolai, at least visually, that we're seeing here. All of this is the very first teaser for Black Ops 7 Zombies, where clearly this is going to be our new playable crew. Does that mean that we're going to have the option of playing as the current crew in BO6 and these characters, or if it's going to be a full focus playing solely as these new characters? We don't know just yet. But with the reveal of Black Ops 7 just around the corner, I think we don't have to wait too long until we find out some official details on what exactly is going on here. Treyarch themselves, when commenting about the Super Easter egg, said that there was no comment, but they were excited to see players complete the Easter egg, as at that point players will know exactly what is going to be happening next. And well, we are going to be playing as a new version of the Primis and Ultimus characters. Drop your thoughts down below in the comment section, but if you want to see a video on how to complete the Reckoning Easter egg and get this ending in-game for yourself, click this video on your screen right now and be sure to subscribe, because the moment we get more news about Black Ops 7 Zombies, I will update you here on the channel, so be sure to subscribe with the bell ticked.